Good evening and welcome to the Waco Memorial City Commission meeting. First item on the agenda will be the consent agenda, and we have no proclamation items tonight, so we're off the consent agenda. And all matters listed on the consent agenda will be considered under one motion, be enacted by one motion. There'll be no second discussion on those items, and if discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate discussion? Bob, you said licenses?
Number 4.
4, okay.
Conflict of interest with one of the licenses.
Okay. Any others from the commission? Item number 9, which has to do with the performance agreement with the Here Kansas LLC, I would like to have removed for a separate vote. So items number 4 and 9. Is there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay. Then to the consent agenda, we need to add claims to 204 vendors in the amount of $14,844,192.28 and payroll in the amount of $2,011,842.58. So with the exception of number 4 and number 9 and the addition of the claims and the payroll, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Moved. Second.
Motion made and second for approval, made by Commissioner Shum, second by Vice Mayor Farmer. Any other questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item are licenses. It's just on one of them.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the license? Entertain a motion for approval of the licenses.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion made and second for approval of licenses made by Commissioner Reardon, second by Commissioner Dever. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 4-0-1. Commissioner Shum abstaining. You didn't get it. You didn't get your license.
I voted no.
Item number 9 is to authorize the city manager to execute the performance agreement with Here Kansas LLC regarding the Neighborhood Revitalization Act Project 1101 and 1115 Indiana Streets. Dave, this is just the...
This is a standard agreement that we have prepared and negotiated with the applicant.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this item?
No, sir.
Any public comment on this item? Okay. Entertain a motion then for the authorization of the city manager to execute the performance agreement with Here Kansas LLC.
Moved.
Second.
Motion made in the second for approval was made by Vice Mayor Farmer, second by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. It passes 3-2. Commissioner Shum and Mayor Amick's voting in dissension. Next item on the agenda is the city manager's report. David?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Just a couple of items from our Parks and Recreation Department. There's a neat report about a special populations activity. I think a lot of people in the community don't know that we have a really wonderful special populations division in our Parks and Recreation Department. It does a lot of great things, and some information about what they were up to this summer. And finally, we've put together a video that is outdated because of the changes that are going on out at the sports pavilion, but gives you a good view of what's going on in the facility as we work toward finalization of the recreation center.
Questions of the city manager?
I don't have a question, but we recently had a storm, and my wife and I went down to Tim and Judy Keller's house, and that evening the city came by and removed parts of trees from the street, and I just wanted to commend the city for doing this in such an expeditious and excellent way. It really was very gratifying to see that was done and safety was proclaimed something important to us.
Thanks, Terry. You know, and
It has to be said, the number of great comments that we hear from citizens, throughout the community on the work that's done, especially in time of emergency. So, thank you to everybody that works in the departments. I know it's a lot of work, but a lot of things that get cleaned up and back in business quickly, so, and thank you. Okay, any other questions, City Manager? Okay. And we are off to the regular agenda. Probably do have people that wish to speak tonight on the various items that we have on the regular agenda. I would ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We do have a clock, and if we start going along, I'll just kind of wave at you or throw, I won't throw things, but anyway, it'll be fun. But we always enjoy people coming this evening. First item is to consider adopting resolution number 7083A, authorizing and calling a special election, submitting to the voters the proposition of levying a special 1/4% city retailer sales tax to pay the cost of constructing and equipping a police facility, and directing notice of special election to be published. Or resolution number 7083B, authorizing and calling a special question election submitted to the voters for proposition of levying a special 0.2% retailer sales tax to pay for the cost of constructing and equipping a police facility, and directing notice of special question election to be published. David.
Mayor and Commissioners, staff, Tony and Casey primarily have been following your direction at the past City Commission meeting and have provided you with a couple of different options. Both of those resolutions would pay off the principal and interest required for the proposed facility at the dollar amount that we have now adjusted to reflect the fact that we'll be doing $1.5 million worth of general obligation debt for the project as well. So that's $24.2 million is what we need, plus the interest cost to pay off for that. 9 years at 0.2, 8 years at 0.25. It's important for you to understand that you will have the ability to turn off the sales tax sooner if we are too conservative in our sales tax estimates, if we're getting more receipts in, or if we get better bids on the project and you establish a project cap at a lower dollar amount, we can turn the sales tax off sooner. We cannot extend it without the permission of the voters. Mayor, you had asked the question, what would happen if we are off on sales tax projections on the other side? They are, we don't receive all of the revenue. We'll have to look for revenue from other sources. We'd still have that general obligation debt. It's a contract, so we have to follow through on paying those principal and interest payments. But we'd look for it through other resources, have to adjust our capital budget, whatever we'd have to do in order to make up for any shortfall. We think the 2% growth of the sales tax is what we've historically seen. We're seeing it better this year. Over 9 years, we'll probably have another recession. Who knows what can happen to the economy, but we think that projection is something that we think is appropriate. So be happy to respond to any questions. Casey, did I miss anything? Tony? This is all, yes.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the two charts in your staff memorandum. The one that has 0.2% and the other one at 0.25. So at the end of 10 years under 0.2, there's almost $1.6 million in surplus if the projection comes in as, and so where does that money end up?
Well, what we do is just turn it off sooner if that's where we're landing. The state doesn't allow us to do increments other than at 0.05%. So you couldn't, I mean, theoretically, you could write it so that you could have a zero balance. I wouldn't recommend that. That's a little too tight, for us. Okay. But if it has to be spent on the facility.
So we would turn off the tax quicker, and there'd be just a very small balance left that we would put grass seed in the lawn or something out there. So
we have the ability to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Give the state, I think, 90 days notice, and we ought to be able to forecast it pretty well to that.
Other questions of staff? Okay. Any public comment on this item? Oh, surely. Any member of the public wish to make a comment on this item? Third week in a row. Come on. Okay.
Nobody cares.
Thank you all for coming this evening. And we do know that you all have been heavily involved in making sure that we get to this point and we place this question before the voters in Lawrence, Kansas. And as I said last week, this is an extremely important question to be asked, and that one that we all take very serious. Thank each member of the commission for the work that they've done in making sure that we've got the price tag at a cost that is something everyone feels comfortable with in asking the voters to approve. It's one that, a price tag that will pay for a building and equipping a building that is going to take us into generations into the future. And again, it's something that is affordable at 0.2%. And I think that that is something that I believe is very affordable to all for the sake of public safety in Lawrence, Kansas. And that's something that is extremely important. So with that, are we all comfortable with the two issues that are before us, the two resolutions, and is there one that we want to talk about over the other? My recommendation would be the 2/10 at 9 years. I believe that 7083B is the best way to go, because nothing else, it appears to be a more affordable rate. It's as close as we can get and still cover all the costs. I think it's the right way to go.
I agree.
I think the 0.2 makes the most sense.
Well,
You know, another way to explain that to people is, I think people get lost in some of the states. It's 2 dimes per $100. So that's the real money that's you're spending. Well, you can do the math.
let's just check. Okay.
Well, that's just that true or false. True? Yeah, true.
We'll have to believe him. Okay. So then the item then before us is to consider resolution number 7083B. And just so everybody knows, again, it authorized and called a special question election, submitting to the voters the proposition of levying a special 0.2% city retailer sales tax to pay for the cost of constructing and equipping a police facility in direct notice of the special question election, and that is to be published.
And
Go ahead.
so two things to point out. Number one, thanks for the work on the $24.2 million as opposed to the 25.7. I think that's going to be important. But secondly, folks should understand the difference between it, and I can thank Casey for this education, but a general purpose versus a special purpose sales tax. And this is a special purpose sales tax, which is different than the 94 sales tax, which was a general purpose sales tax.
Correct.
And so after 9 years or such time, when we collect enough money to pay for this, it's turned off, and you know, it can't be extended for other general governmental purposes. And this is just to build a police facility, and I think it's important to go on the record and say that, and hopefully it gets written about tomorrow in detail in relationship to that. But you know, this is the culmination of a lot of hard work from all of us and really making this a priority. And I'm super ecstatic for our police department. They've deserved and needed this for a long time, and the real work's just beginning. You know, we've got a 90-day fast and furious campaign that is going to have to go before the community, and you know, I hope that you know, the folks of Lawrence, and I know they will, I know they'll step up to the plate and you know, fund this, and we'll be extremely proud of how we've made this a priority for our police department. And this is, as you said, Mayor, a great investment for many, many, many years to come. So thanks for all your work on this, Casey. Sorry to throw a curveball at you last week, but I'm glad we got it to this point, and I think the 24.2 is a great number, and thanks to all of you guys for getting behind it, and the Hallmark side, of course, you know, it is the best one, and I think we'll see long-term benefits and gains from that in relationship to the amount of time and resources, the indirect costs that'll be saved over, you know, the next 20 to 30 years as we have this facility. So I'm happy to make the motion, Mayor, to adopt resolution number 7083B, authorizing and calling a special question election, submitting to the voters, levying a special 0.2% city retailer sales tax to pay for the cost of constructing and equipping a police facility, and directing notice of special question election be published.
Okay.
Mayor. Also, I'd like to point out for the public that because the site is a site we're selecting, it helps 5 other entities in terms of their mission. It's going to help the hospital in terms of the parking. It's going to help the school system in terms of another maintenance opportunity. It's going to help Boys Club, Girls Club. We hope that there will be land there for their essential teen center. And then there's an opportunity for a recreation center that we can't find a place for in the community that I think we all would like to see become a reality. So it's really got, and then it's going to be, of course, home for our police department. So I think it's, the site itself is advantageous in terms of answering a lot of the needs for other people. So it's really a nice community fit, this whole situation, the way it's boiled down. So with that, for Rear One's consumption, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Jim, Mike, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Agreed. Sure.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 7083B. And that was made by Vice Mayor Farmer and second by Commissioner Shum. No other questions or comments? I would entertain. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is to consider authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment to the 2012-2015 Memorandum of Understanding with the Lawrence Professional Firefighters, IAFF, Local 1596, concerning the 2015 general wage adjustment.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This amendment before you is being unanimously recommended by the negotiation team of the city, as well as the Lawrence Professional Firefighters negotiation team. This amendment provides for a 2% general wage adjustment effective with the first full pay period of 2015 for those members. And the amendment was ratified by the Lawrence Professional Firefighters at their meeting they had last evening. I would like to recognize the city's management team that worked on negotiations, including Commissioner Shum, and also those members, Ryan Hornberger, who's the president, and his team who worked on these negotiations as well. I know that several of their leadership members are either on duty this evening or have other arrangements for this evening and could not be here. We, again, recommend approval of this amendment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, for 2015, this increase is going to be paid from where?
It's approximately a $90,000 increase, and at your direction, there is appropriate expenditure authority within the cash balance of the general fund that I understand would be a source.
Diane, excuse me, but we're only liable for 75% of that amount.
That's correct.
So I think it was in the paper the other day there was going to be a $90,000 charge, but it's really 75% of that amount.
Because the county would take on the remaining share. That's correct.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Any public comment on this item? Well, Diane, I want to thank you for heading up the negotiating team and the work that you've done this year and getting all this done. Bob, thank you for sitting in on the negotiations and all the other members. I know it's a lot of hard work, A lot of people spend a lot of time doing a whole lot of good for our community, and let's finish this up. So if there's no questions or comments from the commission, I would entertain a motion that authorize the mayor to execute the amendment to the 2012-2015 Memorandum of Understanding with the Professional Firefighters Local 1596.
Move.
Second.
Motion made and second for approval is made by Commissioner Shum, second by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you all. Next item is the city auditor report, the performance audit on Rock Chalk Park, the infrastructure improvement monitoring. Michael.
Good evening, Mike Glinsky, City Auditor. Yeah, so I'll present the report. I'll go over it pretty quickly and then leave some time for questions if there are any. So the objectives of the work were, this is kind of a wordy way of saying basically to look at were we taking advantage of the oversight monitoring mechanisms that we have in place, primarily in the development agreement, to look at the infrastructure improvements. A couple of things to keep in mind. I tried in this project to make sure I was forward-looking in the recommendations. I included interim reports so that if an issue came up, I would share with the city manager basically immediately, so that if there was any timeliness issue, we could address it right away. This last bullet point is just a reminder that the scope of this was the infrastructure improvements, not the rec center. A little bit of background on these two slides. This is a list of the items that were on the infrastructure. You can see it's very broad range, everything from tennis courts to sewers, roads and parking lots. If you add all these numbers up, you come to about 12 million, with the largest item being parking lots. So as I said, I looked basically at were we using the mechanisms that were in place in the development agreement, and basically conclude that, yeah, we made use of those. These bullet points cover some of those main ways we made use of the oversight model that was in the development agreement. So staff met with the project construction team, I guess you call it, regular basis. They provided updates to you and to the public on a monthly basis. Staff inspectors had access to the site. We had access to concrete weight/batch tickets, provided monthly reporting. These last two bullet points here have not yet happened. We will have an opportunity to review documentation supporting payment, and RCP, which is the entity that's associated with KU Endowment, has an audit of the cost of the work. So I mentioned that we did interim reporting. Interim reporting is something in government auditing standards that allows me to provide report before a full final report is done. The idea is that if there's something that's maybe more timely, that I can get that information out. I did that. There were 3 of these interim reports, and report in this case is a memo of a page or 2. All of those are in the back of the full document if you want to read them all. They had some recommendations. These are the main recommendations. They were about some of the form of the monthly reports that came to you guys, about the compliance with the lighting plan, documenting changes to the work, and understanding this RCP audit that will be done at the end of the project. So I mentioned that the focus of the work was to try to be forward-looking, and one of the ways that the city can help to ensure the success of the infrastructure in the long run is to put measurement systems in place and to track things over time. We have systems in place for some but not all of the infrastructure. And what I mean by systems for measuring and assessing the infrastructure are things like our pavement management system. So all of the roads can go right into that pavement management system. The big item that we don't have a system for right now is parking. And I think I have a recommendation to sort of develop that. We're getting to have a lot of parking infrastructure now, especially in just the last couple of years with this. This is a big project, and the new lot next to the library. So the idea of these systems are that they help to inform decisions about maintaining and replacing facilities, and they also help demonstrate that we're providing good adequate maintenance. They help kind of make the best decisions, you get the best bang for your buck on maintenance, much like the pavement management system. For the RCP project, it's also important in that there's some shared maintenance responsibilities, and the facility is used by both the stadium side and the rec center side. So it's important to make sure we do provide adequate maintenance and get adequate maintenance. Another mechanism for measuring and reporting on performance is to use performance provisions, similar to what we've done in the past with economic development incentives. We didn't really do that for this project, but I think the reporting mechanism of having these annual reports that come to you guys would work, and it would be feasible, and would put in place a mechanism that would provide that the reports come on a regular basis. So I have a recommendation about that as well. And so the last section of the report is a couple of internal control compliance issues. Basically boils down to we need to follow internal controls for purchasing and tighten some of our cash controls. I've made a total of 7 recommendations, I believe. 4 on this slide, and 3 will be on the next. See if I want to say any of these that I haven't already talked about. Pretty much things I have talked about already. The cash handling, these 3 recommendations are about to use this. We have a system in place for miscellaneous billing, and I think that would be a good way to collect these sort of not unusual but rare charges. So we have application fees for IRBs. Make sure we get training so that we're all up to that. And I had a recommendation to collect the fee. My understanding is that that has happened, that the fee that had collected before has happened. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and as usual, the report is available on the city's webpage.
Okay. Questions of Michael? Michael, this RCP audit, is that done by, it's done by RCP, and then is that a public document?
So
Does it come to us, I guess?
So I can tell you what it is. It's in the construction contract. So that's a contract between RCP and the developer who's building the project. And it calls for the owner, which is RCP, their auditors, to review and report in writing on the contractor's final accounting within 30 days after delivery of the final accounting to the architect by the contractor. So we're not really part of that, in that it's not coming to you. I don't know if we have access to it. That's kind of a...
Dave? Yeah.
Mayor, no, it's a good recommendation. I've asked the University of Kansas Endowment Association whether or not we will have access to that, and I've been advised that the answer is yes. We will have access to every document that they will have an access to in regards to this.
Well, the reason my question then is, if somebody were to request those once it comes to us, does that mean it is a public document?
I would insist that it be a public document. Yeah, we put it up on the website.
Okay.
I think and I think it could be a strong control. They have a requirement.
I just want to be able to answer it. So,
But what I've asked Monty Sokup, who's the vice president, is our primary liaison with the KU Endowment Association on this, whether or not we would have access to that audit. And he told me that we would have access to all of the documents that they'll have access to in regards to the documents that show the payments and such throughout the project.
Bob?
So is that what the city pays, what the audit?
No, what the city will
Shows.
pay, what the audit will be a verification tool to show, another verification tool to show that the work was done and what the costs were. What we will pay is pursuant to the development agreement, costs that we can show are appropriately verified for the work that's appropriately verified. You all have been receiving the monthly reports that have kept you up to date in regards to that. You'll get another one, I think, next week.
What if there's a substantial difference between the numbers?
Well, we'll have a pretty healthy discussion. We're going to pay what the contract that we have with them says that we will pay for.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thanks, Mike. Public comment on this item? Okay. And back to the commission. Any other questions about this? Entertain a motion to receive the report.
Moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to receive the city auditor's report made by Vice Mayor Farmer, seconded by Commissioner Reardon. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item is general public comment.
Good evening. My name is Robin Krug. I'm a coach with Ad Astra Area Aquatics, and it's my last stop here. I don't mean to bug you guys with this, but we're a swim club here in town. We're the second. We're an offshoot of what was originally the Aquahawks, and we've kind of just reached the end of a road where we're having difficulty negotiating with the Parks and Recs department, and I was hoping that perhaps one of you or you could direct us somewhere where we get a third party to help us negotiate the use of the indoor aquatic center. We currently have 159 swimmers swimming on our team, and we've acquired the use of Haskell for a few hours each night, which alleviates some of it, but at this point in time, we just don't have enough lane space, and the relationship doesn't seem to be getting any better. I know some of you have heard about this from a few years ago when space between two teams was important for each of us then, and we're kind of back to that place again. And I guess I'm just kind of here to ask for some help.
So didn't we come up with an agreement a few years ago to deal with this?
You know, it has been working fairly well. However, this year, you know, we have half the lanes we had last year. And at this point in time, we don't have enough space to have the kids in the water. Okay. And we're trying to work with the Haskell to allow us to use the pool later there to accommodate. But, you know, I think there's like maybe 12 or 14 lanes available during the time space after school and before kids go to bed. I mean, we have 9-year-olds that they can't be up, and we don't want them up until 8 o'clock at night, 8:30. So there's 12 or 14 available, and I think, you know, as of the meeting, it was worked out prior to the day, but now we have 4 lanes for our kids, and it's not getting better. It seems to be getting worse. Okay. And I'm just here to ask for a little help. If anybody's interested, I have some information on our club. But if you can pass along to somebody else, or if one of you would help us, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Well, okay. I think what we need to do here is direct you to the city manager and to see if it can be worked out. If it cannot, then this body as a whole ought to be the final decision on all of this.
Certainly.
As it was before. Okay?
Okay.
Is that fair
Great.
enough?
Be happy to. Rob, yeah, this is news to me as far as a current issue, so we'll get with Rob, get some contact information, find out, and give you a comprehensive report as to what we're doing, and if we're not balancing it appropriately, the free swim interests, the club interests, the meet interests, the school interests, if we're not balancing it appropriately, you all will direct us accordingly. So we'll get that information.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for coming.
Sounds like we should have added a pool in Rock Shot Park.
Yeah, that is a whole nother topic.
Other public comment?
Just a,
That's for when you're mayor.
Okay, so I have a printout for each of you, if that's okay. My name is Mallory Bliss, and I emailed all of you, and the city manager earlier
Thank you.
last week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did.
Okay, so what this is a petition that I started on Friday and on behalf of downtown employees. It's pretty straightforward on the front. The reason I did it is because in September, the New Hampshire parking garage will no longer have free parking on the top level. And I'm a downtown employee, and I know a lot of people that work downtown, and it's been a constant issue for years with parking. And so what I'm proposing is if this is now a fee for parking on the top, that the city come up with some type of system for either discounted or possibly free passes for employees that can prove that they work downtown with a pay stub, something of that nature for either an annual or a monthly pass for parking.
Okay. The current passes that we, or the current,
The current annual passes are $192 a year.
and on a
and that's-
5-day-a-week, that's like 73 cents a day or something like that?
Well, the angle that I was kind of going with the monthly pass is that for a lot of people that work downtown, we work retail, restaurants, we don't make a lot of money, so
Kinda like
doing
me.
the $200 chunk
Just want to make sure that
at
this is
one
right.
time can be difficult. So if there was some kind of discounted monthly pass, it would be a smaller chunk at a time, which I think would be easier.
Mallory, would your employer be willing to help with discounting, helping with parking for employees?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask if they would be willing to, do you mean the business?
Yeah.
Be willing to pay for it?
By permit.
Buy a permit for you?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can ask, of course, but
Yeah.
I would hope so. I know that I'm in support of it. I, with this petition, sent it out to a lot of different restaurants, shops, bars, different places downtown through both email and Facebook. I have heard back from quite a few places so far, and I just started this petition on last Friday, so it's been 5 days. And in those 5 days, I've already had 184 signatures, and that was when I checked earlier today. They're still coming, which with that printout, it has the signatures, and then at the end, it has comments. I think if you take the time to read through the comments, you can see that it's a really common thing for downtown employees to have issues parking.
And Mallory, just so that you know, I have employees too that go
Yeah.
through the same thing.
Yeah, so if there's something that we could do to kind of come to a compromise with the New Hampshire Street top level not being free long-term parking anymore, that would help us out a lot. This far, I have heard back with support from Weavers. I work at Weavers downtown. I've heard back from Acme, Liberty Hall, Encore, Merchants, Ramen Bowls, Yarn Barn, Salon DeMarco, Third Planet, Minsky's Pizza, and the Dusty Bookshelf, which is quite a lot of support in 5 days, I think, so.
Yeah.
Mayor, I traded a couple emails with you, I think, this week, and I pointed out that the top floor of the 700 block Vermont is free, and some of those stores that you just read off are right across the street from where my office is, and I park up there. And so I don't understand, it's not that far from Weavers. I mean, if we are offering free space, it seems like that answers the situation. And there's quite a few spaces there.
There
I
are, yeah.
don't know
It's
how
a-
many there are, but the whole unit is 300, so there's probably
About 70.
about 70, I was going to say 70 or 80 per floor.
Yeah, it's a nice
But it
garage.
seems like that, it's underutilized now. We want to get activity there, so free sounds like the best price.
Well, I think with that one, the New Hampshire garage is so much more centralized than the Vermont Street, so I
Well.
think that's why a lot of people park there, and it's been there obviously longer, but I agree, it's really nice, and
If
that's.
we were in New York City or in even the Plaza, that would be a very short walk.
Yeah.
And you know, so, and it's healthy. It's a good exercise. And you get to enjoy downtown.
That's true. Well, then, if you want to have one that's free and one pay, you could have the Vermont Street for the pay one, and New Hampshire is
That's not where the
free.
demand is. So the demand for
Yeah.
parking's because the building is going on 9th and New Hampshire's where we're trying to control the parking, where we're trying to facilitate parking in the demand. So we've got less demand on the other ones, so we're making that free. So,
Well, that's why I'm not just saying free passes for parking, I'm also saying discounted for monthly and annual. I feel like if it was a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier for people with less income, that more people would buy passes. I don't know how many people buy annual passes now at the 192 price, but I feel like if it went down a little bit, you'd make more income that way to help with maintaining the garages.
Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. Is we'll visit with the city manager, we'll get some cost numbers, and we'll have this put on the city manager's report in the next several weeks, and see if we can come to some kind of conclusion of whether or not we want to do something in changing, the use on the top floor on the New Hampshire Street project, or, maybe discounting something. But until we get information back from the city manager on this, but we'll do that first before we do anything, okay? Fair
Okay.
enough?
So, got your email about the number of total passes sold, 672 for the year thus far, as of the 8th, which generates at $192, $129,024 in revenue. Do we know what it costs to maintain those spots, and how is it balanced with what those fees that are collected versus what it costs the city to maintain?
The parking fund provides enough money for staffing the parking control officers that help us with turnover. Pays for a police officer, which is part of the whole system, but we've put some funds for that for a police officer and some money for beautification in downtown. We do not have enough revenue generated from parking passes and from meters and from fines to pay to maintain our system. We have to issue debt the entire community pays for in order to rehabilitate parking garages, which is a growing concern with adding more parking garages. And then we also pay for the surface of resurfacing lots. Almost always comes from the city's general fund, where we're paying for street maintenance. So the parking fund does not generate enough revenue to take care of our parking system. And again, we've talked about this off and on. The correct barometer of the parking fund is the success of downtown, and we're very fortunate that we work really hard. Mallory and others are part of that as well, as far as having a great downtown. But we don't generate enough revenue from fines and fees to pay for our parking system. But we do need to have some revenue contributions in order to keep the system in operation. I came up with the idea of making the New Hampshire Street garage free 10 years ago. And sometimes I kick myself, but I'm glad that we did it because it was heavily underutilized then. But we moved people there that didn't want to pay or didn't have the ability to pay. But it's now seeing a great increase in utilization because of a lot of the things that we've done in that area. When the hotel opens up and that retail opens up, I think it's going to see even more. So that's why the suggestion was to start having payment, again, in a very modest amount. The $192 pass hasn't changed since 1996, almost 20 years ago. So it's a modest contribution to pay for parking.
So, question for you, Mallory. If in relationship to a lot of programs that offer reduced rates or free things, in my experience, folks have to prove what their income is. It's not just a self-declaration statement of how much money you make. It's like you got to bring in a bank statement, et cetera. I mean, is that something you would be willing to do, to bring in how much money you make to disclose that information to the city in exchange for reduced parking?
I would, personally, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I'll tell you what, we'll look at it, and I'll get in touch with you over the next couple of weeks, okay?
Okay,
Fair
thank
enough.
you.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yep, Bob.
in that report that comes back from city manager, could you include two things? Number one, the load factor on the top floor of the 7th Street parking garage, what percent of the stalls are filled right now?
Talk about the new garage?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
5-day kind of run through, count it, 3 in the afternoon probably is peak, 3 or 4 in the afternoon is probably peak, just the top floor. And then secondly, what KU charges for parking? I think those are all relevant facts.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else?
Well, and maybe, I don't know what other comparable cities, Dave, you talked about visiting a community where the parking rates were significantly higher than what it is in downtown Lawrence. I'd be interested in seeing some other comparable communities with thriving downtowns to see what their parking rates are and what they do for other folks who,
There's only two
if they have a program for people that work downtown, perhaps in similar situations. I'd like for that to be included in the report too.
We'll get that information together.
Some of my ticket money. Okay, other public comment? Okay, future agenda items. Just the links coming up in the 26th and everything's later dates, so, okay. Commission items, any member of the commission have anything? One of the things that we visited a little bit about yesterday, Dave, was something that surprised me a little bit. I was talking with the people that were involved with possibility of having a grocery store in downtown and discussion about potential, liquor store, a traditional liquor store in downtown. I was really surprised when I visited with Scott that it was an allowed use in downtown.
In the CD zoning
In the
district,
CD zoning
a retail
district.
liquor store is an allowed use.
And I was always under the impression that it was not after the last one closed. Seemed like quite a few years ago now, Bob.
CT Dockery.
Yeah, that was the one. And I always thought that it wasn't allowed use. I didn't know if there was, one of the things that I would like to ask Dave, if, give me a little bit of history in the commission, a little bit of history about what can happen if we want to do like a change in the use tables in the CD zoning district. I mean, I don't know if it's something that we want to initiate, but just give a little bit of update over, the next several weeks.
Okay, do that.
The only thing, I understand the push or the competition from which actually is.
Well, and I'm trying to separate the two.
It's actually a misfounded rumor. It's not happening. But on the other hand, as you put more and more dwelling units down here, you want more things, services that mimic the strip centers where we live. You want dry cleaners, you want liquor stores, you want quick serve groceries and things like that. You want the same thing. So if we start outlawing uses which actually support the living units that we want to get down here, then we're kind of fighting ourselves. So, I mean, we'll take a look at them, but, and maybe you want to put a size, I don't know if you put a size on something or not, but, so there used to be, probably in the 70s, I think there was like 4 or 5 liquor stores down here. There was one over where the Harvest Bread Company is now, or where
Right.
that's right in that area. I can't remember exactly where. And then there was one across from the old Bowl and Boar. And there were CT Dockeries. So there was a number of liquor stores.
Well, I understand. It just seemed when Dockery store
Did I miss
closed. No. When Dockery store closed, I mean, it seemed like that, we hadn't had one since.
Yeah.
And I thought the use had changed and not allowed, so that's the reason
No,
I bring it
understood.
up. So just give a little bit of history over it. What? It's just rent and taxes, that's it. Okay.
Well, it
Anyway.
must have been around before I was born.
Yeah, probably was. Other commission items. Calendar, Dave?
No, sir.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved. Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn. Made by Commissioner Shum, second by Vice Mayor Farmer. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Good
Thank you
job,
all.
Mayor.